Sizinle mi başlayacak? Sizinle mi başlayacak?
Efendim? Geliyor değil mi ses? Şimdi geliyor mu? Efendim, panelimiz birazdan başlayacaktır. Lütfen herkes yerlerine geçsin. Teşekkür ederiz.
Kolay gelsin. Konuşmacı orada konuşacağız ama siz verirsiniz. Ben onun dışında orayı genel alıyorum. Tamam. Konuşmanın olduğu zaman direkt yakın plan görebiliriz. Sadece tekli konuşmacı. Aynen, süpersin. İsim neydi bu arada?
Berra.
Ses.
Efendim, panelimiz az sonra başlayacaktır. Lütfen herkes yerlerine geçsin. Teşekkür ederiz.
Ama çok daha sayılmaz. Ha, sıkıntı yok ama o hareketi de yapabiliriz. Ama yani gerek yok.
Efendim, simultane çevirilere Zoom mobil uygulaması üzerinden gerçekleştirilecektir. Tercüme hizmetlerimizden yararlanmak için oturumlara kişisel kulaklığınızla cep telefonunuz üzerinden ekrana yansıtılan kare kodu okutarak bağlantı sağlamanız, aynı zamanda Zoom yayınını Türkçe dinleyebilmek için telefonlarınıza kulaklıklarınızı takmanız gerekmektedir. Efendim lütfen Türkçe dinleyebilmek için kulaklıklarınızı takın. Efendim bu panelde moderatörümüz Erdinç Yılmaz olacak. Sözü ona bırakıyorum.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Öncelikle SineFilozofi Dergisi 5. Uluslarası Sinema Felsefe Sempozyumuna hoş geldiniz demek istiyorum. İlk konuşmacıyı sunmaktan dolayı da ne kadar mutlu olduğumu belirtmek isterim. Kendisi Dr. Sinnerbrink, alana son derece büyük katkılar sağlamış bir hoca kendisi. Birazdan İngilizce sunuma geçeceğiz. Bir tanıtım yapacağım, ardından da Robert Sinnerbrink konuşmasına başlayacak. Dilerseniz ona da bir hoş geldiniz diyelim. Dear guests, welcome to the Journal of SineFilozofi, the 5th International Symposium on Cinema and Philosophy. I'm so honored to announce our first keynote speaker, Dr. Sinnerbrink. He will make a speech with the title A Dialogue on the Future of Film, Film Philosophy. But first, allow me to introduce him to you. Robert Sinnerbrink is Associate Professor of Philosophy and ARC Future Fellowship recipient. As an undergraduate, he studied medicine, creative writing, film, and philosophy. He received first-class honors and the University Medal in Philosophy before being awarded his PhD on Hegel, Heidegger, and the metaphysics of modernity at the University of Sydney in 2002. As a postgraduate, he spent 6 months studying at the Humboldt University in Berlin. After returning to Australia, he taught philosophy at a number of institutions, including the University of Sydney, UTS, UNSW, the College of Fine Arts, and the Macquarie University. Before joining the Macquarie Department of Philosophy in July 2002. Robert's research areas of interest include aesthetics, philosophy of film, phenomenology, critical theory, Heidegger, and social philosophy. His current research explores the intersection between philosophy and cinema with a focus on the cinematic ethics, the philosophical potential of cinema as a medium of ethical experience. He is also a prolific writer who has numerous books, New Philosophies of Film, Thinking Images and Cinematic Ethics, Exploring Ethical Experience Through Film are examples of his magnificent works. And plus, he's a great person. All right, Professor Sinnerbrink, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear.
I will give the word to you, and I want to state that I'm so pleased to have met you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to play my camera. I don't know if that's visible or not, if you can see me.
All right, right now we can't see you. No. So.
Yeah, it just says the host has stopped the camera. I don't know if that's intentional or, yeah. So shall I just proceed then, or with the camera off?
There's no camera, I don't know.
When I press the unmute of the camera, it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. So I'm not sure. Let's see if that. Yeah, so I can unmute my microphone, but not start the video. It just says the host has muted it. So is it possible to unmute my camera or open up my camera from your end? I'm not sure.
We can hear you, but actually the sound is not very healthy, so
yeah,
I understand what you are saying.
Yeah. Hopefully that would be a bit better. Is that a bit louder?
Yeah.
That's better?
It's better.
Okay, all right. That's okay. Well, I guess if there's no camera, I should just proceed in any case. Well, I first of all want to say thank you very much for the very kind invitation, very generous, warm introduction. I really appreciate it. I wanted to thank my hosts and the SineFilozofi conference organizing team and editorial team. It's a real pleasure to be part of this conference, you know, even if just virtually. I would have liked to have been there, of course, in person, but I'm really happy to be involved and presenting this keynote. Now, I did have a PowerPoint slide which just has some text on it which might be useful for the audience to see. Is it possible to share that?
We still can't see you. We
You
are
can't
trying
see
to
me?
figure out what the problem is, but
Yeah. So I'm just looking at my video settings. My camera is okay from my end. Just not sure why it's not. Yeah. No, I still get that same message that I cannot start my video because the host has stopped it. So it seems to be something blocking my camera there. I'm not sure why that is.
actually, maybe you can start your
Yes.
and then we will try to figure out what the problem
Yeah.
is.
No, that sounds good. All right. Well, look, I will make a start. My idea for this presentation was to basically present a dialogue on the future of film philosophy. And it's really responding to my most recent book, which does conclude with a chapter on which this talk is based, a dialogue on the future of film philosophy. And I thought this might be an interesting way of exploring some of the questions and issues that I examined in my book, but also that I think are very important for contemporary film philosophy and thinking about future directions for film philosophy. And I think this is very much what your conference is focusing on as well. So I'll just make a start. I do have a slide presentation. I don't know if I can share it from my end because I'm reading my text now, but in any case, if you do get the camera up along the way, that would be wonderful. So I'll just make a start. In my book, New Philosophies of Film, An Introduction to Cinema as a Way of Thinking, published by Bloomsbury last year, I discussed contemporary approaches to the philosophy of film and explored the idea of film philosophy. I focused on the question whether film can do philosophy, that is, contribute to our philosophical understanding via cinematic means. I also examined the debate over film as philosophy, which I suggest is better understood as exploring how cinema can accompany philosophy, engage in mutually transformative encounters, guided by the idea of cinematic thinking. I explored this idea by focusing on 3 cinematic case studies. 2 philosophical documentaries compared with each other on the philosopher Jacques Derrida, the first one being the film Derrida by Kirby Dick and Amy Ziering-Kaufman from 2002, and D'ailleurs Derrida, or Derrida's Elsewhere, by the Egyptian filmmaker and poet Safar Fati from 1999. I also looked at Lars von Trier's Melancholia in 2011 and the acclaimed BBC Netflix television series Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker, all of which offered, I think, aesthetically challenging examples of how we might approach cinema and television as a medium of philosophical and ethical experience. My aim was to create a space of dialogue and encounter between film and philosophy, offering new ways of thinking through both. Film from the perspective of philosophy and philosophy from the perspective of film, an approach that might contribute to our philosophical understanding and ethical experience. There are nonetheless 3 significant challenges for philosophy of film and film philosophy arising from contemporary developments, which I noted throughout my book. The first one is the digital revolution that has put the traditional conception of the medium, that is film, into question. The second are the cultural political developments putting identity politics, including critiques of Eurocentrism, colonialism, and so on, back at the center of film theoretical debate. And the third is the challenge to extend the film as philosophy debate into other domains of cinema, like documentary, television, animation, and digital media, and to do so without reduction, circularity, or selection bias. In response to these challenges, particularly the latter one, we would do better, I suggest, to recast the film as philosophy debate in more pluralistic terms, concerning what counts as philosophy as well as what counts as film, emphasizing the potential for cinema to serve as a medium of philosophical and ethical experience, which is what I'm calling the idea of cinematic thinking. I attempted to deal with these issues in my book, but having reached its conclusion, I recognize that there would be critics who may be unconvinced by the film as philosophy idea, who might question the film philosophy approach as I discussed, or who reject the idea of cinematic thinking. Instead of rehearsing and repeating the arguments and debates I examined throughout my book, I thought it would be more interesting to imagine a dialogue on the future of film philosophy, in which these questions could be explored in an abbreviated way by several voices adopting diverse points of view. So there are 5 in total. These are represented by a digital utopian, DU, who I'm calling DU, a philosopher of film, PF, a film philosopher, FP, an advocate of identity politics, IP, and a skeptical cultural theorist, CT. As in any philosophical dialogue, the aim is not necessarily to arrive at a definitive answer or conclusion, but to deepen our understanding, clarify problems, conceptualize how to think through them, and open up new perspectives that might transform our horizons and shift our ways of thinking. Okay, so I might just briefly, since I've got the slideshow with me, unfortunately you don't have the camera there, I know it won't work because I can't share the slides unless I've got the camera going. Okay, never mind, I shall press on. Okay, so basically what I have now is 5 different voices or characters posing questions and having a discussion around this topic, the future of film philosophy. So the first topic or the first challenge, the digital revolution and the future of film philosophy. So here's a question from one of the characters, the digital utopian, DU. Here's the question. You have given us an illuminating overview of the new philosophical theories of film, including the film as philosophy debate. But these theories still treat film as though it were a living medium. How can we talk of film, a concept that is both historically obsolete and technologically superseded, when we are currently in the digital age and the medium of film has been replaced by digital image-making practices? Cinema is still filmed today, so-called, using digital cameras, composed using digital editing software, routinely incorporates animation and CGI techniques, and is subjected to a host of digital post-production processes. How can we still talk of film theory when this medium, as D.M. Broderick observes, as we'll hear about later, no doubt, has been deprived of its object? Much as I'm intrigued by the new philosophies of film, they appear to be in the parlous position of philosophizing on an obsolete medium. They have barely begun to revise their ontology of film in light of the shift to digital culture, let alone the emancipatory potentials of digital utopianism. Stanley Cavell follows André Bazin in theorizing a realist ontology of cinema, while Gilles Deleuze, who at least recognized the significance of digital images, remains focused on traditional forms of movement and time image cinema. Film philosophers, from what I can see, remain skeptical or resistant towards the liberating possibilities of digital technology. What should philosophy of film do in response to the digital revolution? So that's the first question. First response by the philosopher of film. Now, as a philosopher of film, someone trained in film theory, but who embraced the new philosophies of film as an alternative to so-called grand theory, I agree that we need to take the digital revolution seriously. It's true that most philosophers of film have paid little attention to the challenges raised by the digital revolution and do not give enough attention to how we should describe but also philosophize about film in the digital age. That's why many philosophers of film, like Noel Carroll, Karl Plantinga, and others, claim that we should talk of moving images or screen stories rather than film, to loosen the grip of the old term film on our thinking and to shift to a more contemporary and expansive conception of this audiovisual medium. Others argue that we can continue to use the word film, or particularly cinema, in an expanded sense in order to encompass digital images. Despite these technological transformations, linguistic usage, moreover, is slow to change, and the historical origins or legacies of many terms do not preclude their acquisition of new meanings. Film production processes have changed dramatically, as has the circulation and consumption of cinema today, via multiple digital platforms involving different viewing practices, from the old-fashioned, shared, yet solitary viewing experience in a darkened cinema theatre, to watching streamed television shows on your mobile phone while commuting to work. Narrative cinema or screen stories are certainly produced and consumed differently, yet they remain aesthetically continuous with earlier forms of mainstream film, namely movies, despite obvious features such as the incorporation of CGI technology. There are many Yes.
Sorry for interrupting, but are you displaying any PowerPoint presentation? Right.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Are you displaying any PowerPoint presentation right now?
Not right now. I'm reading from my text. I do have a PowerPoint which I forwarded, which I can re-forward.
Sorry.
Perhaps that could be, yeah, that's the one that I think just, I don't know if you have it.
I think that's fine. When you start doing the PowerPoint presentation, we will see it, I'm sure. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, the only thing is because my camera is not visible, anything I share is not visible either. So I did have a PowerPoint presentation. I could resend that. I suppose if that would help, I could probably even do that in the chat. Perhaps, hang on.
That's fine actually, because we weren't sure if you were displaying any presentation or not. That's why I asked, but you can continue, please.
Yeah. Okay, then. No problem. Good. All right. So just the end of that response, there are new possibilities of the medium thanks to the advent of digital images. But as Stephen Prince suggests, there's also a deep continuity with the older paradigm of film narrative. Cinema remains an overwhelmingly narrative medium that has not changed appreciably. Reports of the death of film, thanks to the digital image, are greatly exaggerated. So that's the first response. Second response by a film philosopher, FP. I agree with PF about the need to rethink our assumptions in light of the digital revolution, and that we should give more attention to the ontology of digital images and examine how they differ from analog images. It is also true that contemporary narrative cinema has expanded in its possibilities in technical and production senses, but not radically altered in aesthetic terms. Carl Plantinga's term screen stories is an apt way of describing how narrative cinema has not changed dramatically despite the digital revolution. As a film philosopher, however, I want to say a few words defending the relevance of Cavel's and Deleuze's philosophical work on cinema in the digital age. Now, Cavel, to be sure, does focus on what we might call the analog phase of film history, and he did not write much concerning the shift to digital images and filmmaking practices. At the same time, although he did write on television and a bit on animation, at the same time, his account of the medium refers to the aesthetic affordance